Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully you all are having a wonderful day today. So I thought that I would review this little video. This is going to be about the Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley fight. And, this isn't really a fight overall that, I thought was an excellent fight. Or it's not really something that, is going to go down as one of the all-time great fights. Because, of course, neither Jake Paul or Tyron Woodley, neither of them are really boxers. Jake Paul, of course, he is a former YouTuber. Maybe he still has a YouTube channel. I don't know. I don't really, watch a lot of YouTubers. At least, the trendy types or whatever, like the Pauls or the PewDiePies or whatever the hell they may be. I don't really watch those guys. But when it comes down to it overall, Jake Paul, of course, he was a former YouTuber, kind of got famous from that. And, of course, he's kind of turned to professional boxing, ever since their image has somewhat been ruined or overall, they've not been as likable for the past few years when it comes down to it, or however long that's been. Anyways, when it comes down to it overall, Jake Paul ended up winning the fight against Tyron Woodley yesterday by split decision. There's a certain amount of people that think that there's some controversy with it. Tyron Woodley seems to be a little bit butthurt that he lost the fight yesterday by split decision. I've already said this. I don't know personally how overall the fight was a split decision because I thought Jake Paul very clearly won the fight, and a certain amount of people overall may disagree with me. I've been watching boxing and MMA for a very, very, very long time when it comes down to it. And if you know how to score a boxing fight, you know that Jake Paul probably won that fight. Not even just won the fight, clearly won the fight. Like, the fight probably was not even that close when it came down to, like, in my opinion, if I really had to score rounds, like if you asked me for sure to score this round one or the other way, I think I scored it 7 rounds to 1 for Jake Paul. Like, that's how far apart I had it. But it is what it is. I think if you were being super, super duper generous, maybe you could have given Tyron Woodley about 3 rounds. That's if you, like I said in my other video, maybe that's if you were his wife or spouse. But when it comes down to it overall, I thought Tyron Woodley, there was 1 round that he won clearly. You could have gave him another round. If you really wanted to be generous, you could have gave him a third one. But Jake Paul, in my opinion, clearly won the fight. He clearly won the first 3 rounds. In my opinion, he also probably won round 6 and round 7. So Tyron Woodley has no one else to blame but himself. Anyways, we're going to see what BoxingEgo has to say. Ego is a part of the LDBC and new media. His opinions don't always exactly align 100% with always what they say, but he does have a lot of the same opinions. And one thing we know about the LDBC and new media, they are very racially motivated. And of course, that was still going to go into this fight as well. And I'm now seeing certain LDBC channels, especially Ego, kind of make a bunch of excuses, but it is what it is. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's see what he has to say.
T. Woodley wants to know what's going on after his fight with Jake Paul. He said there was no drug testing administered. Oh, we gotta talk about this. What happened last night in Cleveland that evening? What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Throw a like on the video. Let's jump into it. Now, T. Woodley.
It just always surprises me, or it always interests me how certain channels like these LDBC and new media channels, they take whatever fighters that they like, which, let's be real, they're of a certain complexion when it comes down to it. So fighters like Errol Spence, Deontay Wilder, Terrence Crawford, depending on the channel, not every single one of those channels likes every single black American fighter, but when it comes down to it, a lot of the channels do. When it comes down to it, it just, it always interests me how they try to push this narrative, or, they'll try to make someone guilty, 100% guilty of something if they don't like that person, or if they don't have the protection because of their complexion with them when it comes down to it. But if it comes to someone like Errol Spence Jr., who pulled out of the Manny Pacquiao fight because of an apparent retina injury that none of us ever heard about before. Now, if you're asking me, do I believe that Errol Spence Jr. actually did have a torn retina? I believe more than likely he did. I give Errol Spence Jr. the benefit of the doubt because Errol Spence has always proven to me that he is very serious about getting the big fights. But, BoxingEgo, before he really even did any research, he immediately tried to defend Errol Spence Jr. because Errol Spence is a fighter that he was trying to defend. But then when it came to Tyson Fury or Jake Paul, he'll give in to the accusations because he kind of wants them to be guilty from the get-go. But it is what it is.
First of all, this is him post-fight. He says his face is spotless, right? He said he suffered nothing.
Probably gonna be like 4,000 people on this live. I'm finna go live real quick.
If he fall through the rope,
Yep.
it's heavy. I'm trying to say,
And my face looked the exact same. He didn't even mess up my line. And no, it had no Beijing in there. See, look. You can alcohol, you can wipe it, you can swipe it. You can do whatever you need to do. Damn. I take that back. 12,000. All right, y'all. Y'all saw the fight. I thought I did enough. Thought I knocked him around. Every time he punched me, I said, all right, motherfucker, let's go. Hit him back with the
Well, if you thought that you won that fight, Tyron, then you're goddamn delusional. That's what I'll say. And anyone who thinks Tyron Woodley won that fight, they're delusional as well. If you thought that Tyron Woodley won that fight against Jake Paul, you don't know how to score a boxing fight, and you should never score a boxing fight ever again in your life. That's the bottom line. A lot of people may not like that. I really don't give a damn. It is what it is. Tyron Woodley was way too passive yesterday. And I know there's going to be a certain amount of people overall that say he was walking him down and overall, he was pressuring him and blah, blah, blah. It's so interesting. A lot of these LDBC new media channels, they complain about the double standards that a lot of these black fighters have to deal with. And I agree. A lot of black fighters do have to have to deal with a certain amount of double standards when it comes down to it. If they're on the back foot versus, say, another fighter like, say, Canelo Alvarez is on a back foot or something like that. I will agree with that to a certain degree. But when it comes down to it, some of these channels like Dante's Boxing Nation and BoxingEgo or some of those channels, all of a sudden when it comes to a fighter that they like, all of a sudden they're saying, oh, well, Tyron Woodley, he was pressuring him the whole entire night. You got to be consistent. Just because you're the one pressuring or just because you're the one that's chasing after the other guy doesn't mean that you're winning the fight. Now, there was a fight a few weeks ago between Guillermo Rigondeaux and John Rio Casimero, where Casimero, he pretty much won the fight really because he was doing nothing but pressuring Guillermo Rigondeaux, even though, I wouldn't say that he was necessarily landing the cleaner shots. But the thing is, the reason why that fight was so different is because Guillermo Rigondeaux threw so little in that fight. And I thought that he had a little bit more control. And like I said, if I personally would have been able to score the fight myself, I would have scored it for Guillermo Rigondeaux just by a smidge. But you cannot run around the ring like that the whole entire night without barely really throwing anything per round and expect to win the fight by unanimous decision. You just can't do that because they really were landing almost at the same rate or a very similar rate. This was not that type of fight. Jake Paul, even though obviously he was on the back foot, he very clearly was outlanding Tyron Woodley. Like, the numbers were not even close. And I know the final CompuPunch stats, they say overall it was only a 20-punch difference, which is still a pretty big difference. I would really have to look at the fight myself because, to be quite honest with you, I don't know. They said Tyron Woodley landed about 50-something punches. I did not see 50 punches that Tyron Woodley landed. But that's just my opinion. I'd have to rewatch it.
Yeah. And he said he want a rematch. Now he's trying to back out of it. He got a little quiet last night. He was all about the rematch. And he got real quiet. So I want y'all to do...
Why should he have to rematch you? That's not going to do a lot of money, Tyron, because even though you were able to hurt him here and there, and the only for sure round that I gave Tyron Woodley was the 4th round when it came down to it. And once again, there's going to be a lot of people that claim that it was fixed. In my opinion, you don't try to hurt each other the way that you did yesterday. You don't land some of the punches that both fighters landed yesterday on each other if that's fixed. But it is what it is.
Do me a favor. I want y'all to get on his page. I want y'all to troll the fucking troll. If you really down. Actually, you know what? If you do that and you send me receipts, I'm gonna send you a coupon code to go to TyronWoodley.shop. I'm gonna give you 25% off. So, but you gotta send me a receipt. Go on his page. Y'all might get reported. That don't mean you gonna get taken off. I know it say you might get removed from motherfucking Instagram. That ain't always true. They do the same shit to me. They probably gonna call my phone in a minute, cause you know it's trolls do. They call my phone whenever I go live, trying to stop it. I appreciate all the support from.
So there you have it. He's posting like clips. He says, "I'm your daddy, Jake Paul. You my son." And this was after I put you through the ropes. You see Showtime Pettis.
Actually, if anyone is anybody's daddy, Jake Paul is your daddy after that bullshit performance that you put on last night, Tyron. I mean, you should be absolutely embarrassed. I don't care what point in time you are at your career. All right, you know, people are talking about Jake Paul's size advantage and all sort of bullshit. Jake Paul, I'm not sure how much. I thought that he was only able to rehydrate to 190, but maybe I'm wrong about that. If I'm wrong about that, then someone correct me. But the bottom line is this. Jake Paul is not some dude overall that's built like the Big Show. He's not someone overall who's, you know, super duper big. Of course he's bigger than Tyron Woodley. He's 6'1". I believe they had about the same reach. Maybe Jake Paul had a little bit of a reach advantage over him. I don't know. But when it comes down to the overall bottom line is this. Tyron Woodley is a professional mixed martial artist. You should have been able to take him yesterday. That is the bottom line. It is what it is.
Says you won that ish, my guy, right? So he gets some support. Posted this picture. I got more videos coming. The ropes holding him up. You know, T Wood, the chosen one. He said, "Let's talk." What happened last night? I want to know who you guys thought won. T Wood. These are the.
You can tell that ego. He's trying to convince himself that he thought this fight was close. Let me say this again for the people overall that are wondering my opinion. This fight was not close. This fight was not close. Jake Paul very clearly won this fight. I'm not saying that this was a Floyd Mayweather-esque type performance. Obviously, Jake Paul, once again, he's not going to win any Boxing of the Year awards. He's not going to win, the best craft award of the year or anything like that. And what I mean by that is that, the best boxing craft. But when it comes down to it, he was a better boxer than Tyron Woodley last night, or at least when it came down to it, he was more active. And that's what won him the fight, and you have to give him credit for that. And I know Tyron Woodley, he says that he wants a rematch. Dude, you don't deserve a rematch. In fact, Tyron Woodley, what you should do, to be quite honest with you, is ride off into the sunset. You probably should have done that a couple of fights ago, but it is what it is.
Messages, he says, "Thanks for all the support. Really appreciate the love. Let's talk. The ropes can keep you up and no drug testing. They take my pee in the back for. Run it back. Dave Chappelle said so. Ish seemed fishy in Cleveland. Let's run it in St. Louis." So he says, "I fought in your backyard. Let's fight in my backyard." He's from Missouri. He's from Ferguson. So he said, "Let's fight in, St. Louis." Right? So, this is interesting. Thanks for the support. Really appreciate the love. Let's talk. Ropes can keep you up and no drug testing.
And some people overall say ropes can keep you up. Well, it depends on the referee. And a lot of people are moaning and complaining about that. You have some people overall saying that some referees would have called that a knockdown. Yes, some referees would have called that a knockdown. There was also a recent fight, although I can't remember, another fighter almost also got knocked down, and the referee did not call it a knockdown. Oh, actually, it was the fight on the same card. It was that one new fighter on the block. What was his name? I can't remember. But the kid that beat Ivan Baranchek. Ivan Baranchek a couple of times had him almost through the ropes. And there was no knockdowns called. And I don't have a problem with that. Really what it is, it's up to the referee. Some people may disagree with that, but it is what it is. Certain referees, if you almost fall through the ropes, they'll call it a knockdown. But then sometimes also, if you if you don't fall all the way down to the canvas, it's not going to be counted. So it is what it is. Once again, it depends on the referee.
This is a big one. Because T. Wood had accusations where he kind of suggested he believed that the Paul brothers, or at least one of them, was on something. And he says, you got that long jaw, probably from PEDs. And then now he's saying they didn't have a drug testing. Now, I've seen very...
Yeah, I'm going to need proof of that. But once again, I just find it so interesting how he takes Tyron Woodley for every word that he has. I wonder if Manny Pacquiao, I wonder if he were to say overall, well, you know what, you're Dennis Ugas, because Ugas is a black fighter. And if he were to say, well, you know what, there was no drug testing, I wonder what Ego would say. Would he take what Manny Pacquiao said as the gospel truth? Would he take his side immediately, or would he do a little bit of research on it and say, no, I'm not so sure about that? Once again, I find that interesting.
Just reports from reporters who were at the event, and they were suggesting that they didn't have any drug tests. They ran out of kits. Like, how you run out of kits? That sounds all too convenient. Let me know who you guys had winning the fight. What do you think of the no drug testing? And T Wood still has questions. He's like, why did they take my urine sample? Damn. They got Dave Chappelle in the building. Look, his face look immaculate. Pause, bro. Because
You can tell that Ego really wanted Tyron Woodley to win this fight. Because that's the same shit that Canelo Alvarez fans were saying after he fought Gennady Golovkin. Me and a good friend of mine overall, after we watched the Gennady Golovkin versus Canelo Alvarez fight, that's all the Canelo Alvarez fans were saying after we said we thought Gennady Golovkin won the first fight. And I still, to this day, believe that Gennady Golovkin won that first fight, whether it be 8 rounds to 4 or 7 rounds to 5. But when it comes down to it, what all the Canelo Alvarez fans would say was, well, take a look at Gennady Golovkin's face. Obviously, he was more damaged than Canelo Alvarez, but that doesn't always mean that you got hit more. that just might mean overall you got hit at one point in time by a more impactful punch. Once again, one punch can cause a lot of damage, so you can't judge overall scoring a fight by the complete numbers. You can't overall score it exactly. What I mean by that is this. Whoever is landing more punches per round, at least, impactfully consistent, impactful punches, that, in my opinion, is the person that should win the round. Whether you're moving backwards or forwards, when it comes down to it, that's the person that, in my opinion, would usually win the round when it comes down to it. But like I said, overall, but when you take a look at the final numbers, you can't always, pay attention to those. You can't always say, oh, well, this person, it's so close, so this was a close fight, because it doesn't always happen that way. Because like I said, and I've explained this before, you can have certain rounds that are very, very close, but that round still went to someone very clearly. Like if we were to, I'm trying to think like of a very tough fight, but there was a clear winner. Like if we were to talk about Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders, I can't remember necessarily what the punch stats were on that, but I think they were probably somewhat close, at least for a little bit, because Canelo really wasn't landing a whole lot in that fight, and it took him a while to kind of get Billy Joe Saunders out of there. Now I can sit here and say overall, oh, well, that was such a close fight, and, that's why the fight could have went either way. And a lot of people did say overall that fight could have went either way. I disagree. I thought Canelo Alvarez was clearly winning. That's not me saying that Billy Joe Saunders wasn't giving him a tough time, but I thought that Canelo Alvarez was very clearly winning the fight. Because Billy Joe Saunders, even though he was throwing more than Canelo, he was missing almost every single shot that he was throwing. So it is what it is. So once again, you can't always judge by the final stats, because someone can have a really great round and outland somebody by like 20 punches, and then the next round that other person may win it and they only outland them by, let's say, 4 or 5 punches. So you can't always rely on those numbers. But it is what it is.
Jake Paul's, was knocking out everybody, but clearly with T Wood, I never seen him.
He's knocking out everybody. You're trying now. All of a sudden, you're trying to make Jake Paul sound like this pariah or this great boxer. Like, come on, man. He knocked out Nate Robinson. He knocked out some other YouTuber. I don't even remember the dude's name. It was a Gibb. I don't even know. And then he knocked out Ben Askren, who can't box for shit. I mean, me and whoever is watching this video, you can probably box better than Ben Askren when it comes down to it. And Tyron Woodley, he's a pretty decent striker. But like I've said, and this is why I predicted Jake Paul to win the match, not only because of his size, but Tyron Woodley, I thought overall was washed up at this point in time in his career. He had a little bit more juice than I thought he was going to have. But when it comes down to the overall, Tyron Woodley also has had a very great amount of mistakes in his fighting style, especially in the striking category, because at times he can be very, very one-dimensional. He can be very passive, and both of those problems showed up yesterday.
Even Wobble T Wood hurt him. I don't know. There's a lot of...
Right, but you know what? We can take a look at the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight and say, you know what? Pacquiao hurt Mayweather real bad in the 3rd or 4th round. Because if I remember that fight, I don't really, if I remember right, that is, I don't really remember a time Mayweather ever hurt Pacquiao in that fight. But he clearly, consistently, was outlanding Manny Pacquiao. But I can sit here and say, oh, well, you know what? Mayweather never had a point in the fight where he had Pacquiao up against the ropes the way Pacquiao had him up against the ropes in round 3 or round 4, whichever round it was. So I thought Manny Pacquiao won the fight. That's just stupid to say, but I know why Ego is saying that, because he was really hoping Tyron Woodley was going to win this fight because, once again, his racial bias shows through.
Back and forth. There's a lot of back and forth. I personally thought T. Wood did enough to win. You know what I mean? And I'm going to break.
Now, had that been Conor McGregor versus Jake Paul, or, Conor McGregor versus, say, KSI, he might have had a little bit of a different attitude about it. I guarantee you.
Break that down in more videos. First of all, when you get knocked to the rope, that's a 10-8 round. It's over. Like, look at bro, he looks like...
It's over? No, dude. When you get knocked down, and that was not even a knockdown, because it's up to the referee overall to call that a knockdown or not. Like I said, in my opinion, if I were a referee, it's not an official knockdown, in my opinion, unless someone's glove or knee actually touches the canvas. That's my opinion on the situation. Now, certain referees, if you fall, somewhat on the ropes like that, like Jake Paul did, they will call it a knockdown. Certain referees will also call it a slip. It depends on what the referee is. But this has been around in boxing for years. And now people overall, even Ego, with his dumb ass, when it comes down to it, he's been around boxing for years. He should know better when it comes down to it. Now he's trying to act like, they screwed over Tyron Woodley yesterday. Like, get the fuck out of here, man.
Jesus Christ being nailed to the cross. He looked like a fly that got caught in a spider web. Like, I mean, that's a 10-8 round, clearly.
No, bro. Sorry. That's only a 10-8 round if the referee calls it a 10-8 round. Unless your glove or knee officially touches the canvas, and if the referee does not decide to call it a 10-8 round, that's the referee's business.
So, that was a missed call, blown call, and that's foul because T. Wood earned that. He earned that. But look, see, this is the problem. They trying to advocate for the time. I'm not buying no Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, just based on that. They got to run this back. Look, that's a 10-8 round. The rules of boxing.
Why the hell would they have to run that back? How much is Tyron Woodley paying you, Ego? How much is Tyron Woodley and his team paying you? That's how much. That's what I want to know. I want to know the amount because there's no way you're this delusional. Why the hell would they have to run this back? Do you think that they should run Mayweather and Pacquiao back? Because that's pretty much what this fight was.
Looks like a nice shot. But, that's just one shot pictured. And like I said, T. Wood never seemed, in my opinion, wobbled.
Well, right. No, he never did seem wobbled. But once again, was Manny Pacquiao wobbled in the Mayweather fight? Let me ask you that question, sir. Was Manny Pacquiao ever wobbled, or at least very badly wobbled to the point to where we thought he was going to drop or possibly hurt up against the ropes? Did we ever see Manny Pacquiao in super duper huge trouble in the Mayweather fight? In my opinion, no. Does that mean that Manny Pacquiao won the fight? No, of course not. That's just idiocy.
Woodley had the power. Look, Woodley landed more power punches, which were the more effective punches of the fight.
I'm not even sure about that because Tyron Woodley, he really did not land a whole lot of power punches. I would really have to calculate the punches myself, but a lot of the times I don't believe these stats. It is what it is. But once again, you can't always go by those power punches because once again, Woodley had a very good round in round 4, and he probably, you could argue, landed about 10 good power punches at least. So like I said, you can have a very, very great round, and then those will up your stats, but then the rest of the rounds you may not do so great. So once again, that's why you have to watch the rounds individually. Anyone who makes that argument, it's no offense, but, they ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. It's really a straw man argument.
The jabs favored the longer arm, bigger. I really think Woodley could have did more, and that's what I said.
You really think Woodley could have did more, but yet you think Tyron Woodley possibly got screwed. Okay, I get you.
BoxingEgo watch parties. Thank you to everybody who supported and came out. Look how legendary they are. That's exactly what I was asking Woodley to do. I said, man, he could make this an easier night if he jabs his way in, set up those combinations.
I agree. He would have made himself an easier night had he would have jabbed on the inside and had he would have went after Jake Paul that way. Here's the problem. Tyron Woodley doesn't know how to do that. He's never been known how to do that. Tyron Woodley does not really know how to go on the offensive very, very well, at least in terms of boxing terms. So it is what it is. And I'm a person that watches both boxing and UFC. I seen Tyron Woodley when he won the belt over Robbie Lawler. I seen when he defended it against Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Damian Maia, and Darren Till. I also seen when he got his ass whooped against Kamaru Usman. Okay? Tyron Woodley is a very decent fighter, UFC fighter. He also has a lot of faults.
But it's his first time boxing for real. So, look, the ropes clearly holding him up. T. Wood just standing there. They got to run that back. Let me know what you guys think.
No, they don't have to run that back. Tyron Woodley has to retire and Jake Paul has to move on. That's what has to happen. Anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.